everyone, welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today we are working on making homemade apple cider. So we had a little trouble with our microphone during this section, so I just put it on fast forward and we're doing an audio re-record for you. So I'll just kind of explain what's going on. Right here we have a apple crusher, and this is a Weston or Roma apple crusher. It just mounts right to the countertop. This is a hopper that attaches to the top of it, and the whole thing just clamps right onto the countertop. The board that you see the whole thing sitting on was part of the shipping box. And unless you're going to mount it on the wall, they recommend you leaving it attached to that. Our apples are all kinds of sizes and shapes and deformities because we are organic and we don't spray them. So this is the old handy cider press, and I had trouble with it leaking before. This bottom board is a tongue and groove old oak wood, and the whole thing is very heavy. This is actually the cider press that I was talking about that I broke my foot on in the live stream. So Trey is going to be doing some grinding for us. If the apples are very large, we cut them in half or in quarters so that they'll fit through without jamming it up. We did find, you can see we don't have the hopper on right here, that a lot of the times he would have to back it out or force the apples down if they got clogged. So then the hopper wasn't really working well for us. I think that's better suited if you are going to mount a pulley system on it where this handle is instead of running it by hand. So we've just washed all the apples and we're going through. I cut out any bad spots because it's organic. You know, we get insects that damage them. There was wasps and hornets around. The one tree had a really bad hornet's nest in it, and they seem to really go after the sweet apples at different times of the year. But the fall was really bad, and they damaged a lot of them. Now, this was made a little bit earlier, probably about the end of October, maybe. So we picked a lot of apples, kept them in storage for a couple of weeks, and that just kind of really helped them to develop that flavor and mellow the apples. We do use a straining bag in the buckets. You might have caught that in one of the glimpses. And that helps to transfer your mash or your chopped apples to the cider press. You cannot put whole apples into the cider press. That's probably what broke the bottom board in the first place, is somebody putting too much pressure from the screw on top to that. So if you find an old one like this, you might want to, number one, replace your bottom board. Number two, number one, replace your bottom board. Number two, seal it with food grade material. Make sure you use any varnishes that are made for countertops. And don't put too much pressure turning that top handle. So we're going to be getting up to that section here in just a little bit where the voice recording did work. For some reason it got unplugged and the rest of the video was fine. Big helpers here, lots of help from Trey and George. I think we ended up with probably close to 4 gallons of syrup. I mentioned while we were filming, it's really nice to have this for later on in the year. So we put a few gallons in the freezer and we were able to enjoy it with our Thanksgiving dinner, and it was so nice. We preserved some of the apples, and we were able to make apple pie from our own property. It's all just very rewarding. Simple stuff. It does take up a little space for storage, but in the end, you know, it's good homesteading stuff to teach the kids. We all enjoy it. You can see Murdoch hopped in here and he wanted to help participate with it too. Little George just gets right up on the counter. He's right at home in the kitchen. All right, we're going to get this all loaded up now. And the trick is you have to not make a mess of your house. If you have the paper for doing painting, like to tape off your windows, or a drop cloth of plastic to put down, it does help. Now the paint strainers are not as strong. They're made of nylon. So keep that in mind if you're going to use that. They can tear out while you're transferring. To load this, you have to load and tip the bucket forward. And I've got apple cider already draining from this on the bottom. So we're going to real quick go from one container to the other. Now this cider press is very old. We couldn't hardly find any information on it on the internet, and it is made really low. So we have to use what we use for a popcorn bowl, a stainless steel bowl underneath it. Otherwise you have to raise it up by like setting it on several blocks to get it tall enough to put a 5-gallon bucket underneath it. One of these days I need to pick up some smaller buckets. Our local Lowe's has, I think, 3-gallon buckets in stock, and they're food grade. Just make sure that anything you're using for a collection container is food grade.
No. No. Mama. No.
Now, if you're finding that it's not... Yep, apple juice is coming. Could you give him a little cup? Nothing yet. It's coming. Right now, you're just kind of slowly like compressing it. It's starting to come right now. So I have to keep an eye on this and watch it to make sure that it's not dripping underneath. Could you get us a towel? Oh, no. See how we're not level right here? We need to we're actually not having the forward tip on our platform that we should because this is too far to the back. So we just need to do some adjustments with our basket real quick. Juice. Yeah, more Wawa. Apple juice.
Would you have enough
Go get a cup. Go get a cup. Come on, you're spilling. Can you go that way? He's spilling on the floor. Here. There's someone behind him by his foot. Going that way. Thank you. This is staining brown really bad.
Oh no.
Okay, go ahead. And you can crank it a little more. Okay, go on now. Thank you. Okay, step up. George. Oh, it's so good.
It is? Yeah. If you want to make apple juice, just make some apple juice. Gone from this video, and we will teach you. Tastes really good. Tastes really good.
Don't drink too much, too fast. Well, upset your tummy.
Oh, Baba.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
You know how they say an apple a day keeps the doctor away? Too much of this too fast will keep you on the toilet all day too. So take it easy.
Yeah, that's a really funny joke.
You are speaking very badly, Frank. You're not pronouncing things well. So my varnish job seems to be holding. It's not dripping underneath anymore. He just had a little trouble with the basket sitting too far to the back, so I didn't have the angle on the drain board, which is so much better. The first year I used this and I discovered it was leaking, I had to line it with plastic and let it run in, and then I just had drips going all over the breezeway floor, and I just hated it. So this is a lot better, and I like doing it in the house. Now you can do this stuff outside this time of year, but you have to keep in mind it's also very cold. Like today's 35 degrees and it's just not comfortable to be out there. If you do it when it's a little warmer, then you're contending with the hornets and the wasps, and that's just the worst because they will drive you indoors quickly. They get vicious and mean. They do what's called robbing this time of year, and it doesn't matter if it's your apple cider or, you know, a can of Coke that you've got sitting out somewhere. You've got to be careful because they can sting repeatedly. They're not like honeybees. They have the ability to sting several times over, and they get in that robbing mode after anything with sugar in it, and they'll go after you. So it's nice and comfortable to be inside. George is a handful, but this is a lot better than being outside. Yeah. So this jar will be our dinner tonight. This will go right in the refrigerator and get nice and chilled, and Dad will get some of it, along with Bethany's homemade muffins that she made this morning. Yeah, go ahead. Yep. So I've got to find my other crushed apple strainer. It's around here somewhere, and I'm going to have to run down and go find that and take Georgie with me because the guy is a handful. He's into everything.